freaking first cut. Golly.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the First Cut Podcast. It's Monday, September 23rd. This is your 2024 President's Cup DFS preview. The usual host, Rick, is on his way to the Great White North, traveling through the border. Hopefully he gets there unscathed. But we have a familiar face with us, Greg DuCharme. Greg, it's been a while. I haven't seen you in a bit. How you been?
It's been way too long. I've been great. And I'm very excited for the President's Cup. You know, it's felt like there hasn't been a whole lot of I know we had some golf this past week, some good golf, coffee golf, but I'm excited to get back into the President's Cup. I
am too. Yeah, the DP World Tour is kind of cooked these past 2 weekends, I think, with the Irish Open, BMW PGA. They've been great. You have a good weekend? Everything go all right for you at the DuCharme household?
Yeah, great weekend. Although today I had a little car trouble, which I was frantically trying to solve. I got into work this morning unscathed. When I got to work, I had to move my car. The driveway getting sealed. I had to move it. Wouldn't start. Okay, this is a little bit of a problem. So I called AAA. They come and jump the battery. I thought it was the starter. It was clicking when I pressed the button. Sorry for the sound effect. It starts. I leave it running for like 2 hours. I drive it around a little bit, park it, leave it on another half hour, turn it off, try to turn it on, same thing. I got to call AAA again. They show up back in like 10 minutes. Like, you know, I just did, it was a different guy. I just did this.
Guy.
It's like, do you want a new battery? I said, yes. How do I do that? Said, I have it here. We'll just put it in. Let's put it in. And I problem solved. It's a miracle. I can't believe it. I didn't have to go anywhere. And I got my car fixed remotely. It's phenomenal.
Wow. Hell of a day. I'm glad it all worked out for you. I'm kind of going through car issues as well. My check engine light has been on for a long time. I'm just letting it roll. I'm letting it roll until it blows up or something. I'm due for a new car. I'm in the market for a new car.
How old are we talking?
2012 Ford Escape.
Yeah. Okay.
Minimal miles, though.
Well, you should get the engine checked. It might have a lot left in the tank.
Yeah, but there's some leakage issues, right? It's time to move on. Yeah, I'm looking at Volvos if anyone from there is listening. Please reach out to me. Okay, shall we get into the President's Cup, Greg?
Let's get into it.
All right, let's get into the format, the events, and a little course information for the boys and girls at home at Royal Montreal. So President's Cup, it is not like the Ryder Cup, which is 28 matches. President's Cup has a couple more, has 30. So it's a race to 15 and a half for the internationals, 15 for the U.S. Thursday, you have 5 matches of 4-ball. Friday, 5 matches of foursome. Saturday is the big day, the fun day. 8 matches total, 4-ball in the morning, foursomes in the afternoon, and then your traditional 12 Sunday singles matches. The U.S., Greg, has been, I don't know how to put this lightly, dominant in this event. 9 straight wins. Adam Scott, he'll be making his 11th appearance. He has never won the President's Cup, which is crazy. He has a tie in his first one ever. But what do you make generally of maybe the internationals somewhat catching up? The road affairs have been a bit tighter in recent memory. And do you think this could be a President's Cup where we do see another tight affair?
I do. I think there are a number of questions at play. I still think the U.S. is rightly favored. They should be, and they should win. It will be a problem if they lose. They will have made some mistakes and played poorly if they lose. Now, that being said, you know, the interesting thing about these cup matches and looking at it on paper, you know, we judge all of our competition, all of our world rankings on 72-hole stroke play. And the only thing that counts, whether you're looking at FedEx Cup points, official World Golf ranking points, no matter what it is, what metric you're looking at, we're looking at 72-hole stroke play. It is cumulative over 4 rounds of golf. This tournament is all 18-hole matches. So you add 2 things into the fray. One, you shorten the amount of time that's played down to 18 holes to decide a point. And you also make it match play. And those 2 things add some pretty serious volatility. Now, 30 matches gives you a pretty wide sample size. But at the same time, each match becomes much more winnable for the underdog because golfers on the PGA Tour are a lot closer than it seems, especially when you look at 18 holes. So I think there's absolutely a chance that the internationals win. However, the United States team should handle business.
All right, let's get into those 18 holes. Royal Montreal Golf Club, the oldest golf club in North America, a historical site. It has hosted a President's Cup before, 2007. You are going to see the footage of Woody Austin falling into the pond nonstop this week. I believe Johnson Wagner already tried to recreate it on Live From, did not get wet. The U.S. won that President's Cup 19.5 to 14.5. That's when they used to do 6 matches the first couple days, so that's why the point total might not line up to 30. Interestingly enough, Greg, the U.S. was dominant in foursomes during that President's Cup. They won 10.5 to half a point in the foursome session in 2007. It's also hosted a number of Canadian Opens. Tim Clark won in 2014, a recent winner there. But what can you tell us about this Dick Wilson design?
Dick Wilson design, but redesigned by Reese Jones. Mm-hmm. Now, Reese Jones has redone Torrey Pines and many other. He has his hands on many other golf courses. He was once known as the Open Doctor. So a lot of the U.S. Open venues have Reese Jones fingerprints on it. Couple things that he likes to do that you're going to see a lot of, especially in the first 13 holes. You're going to see slight dog legs with narrow fairways, bunkers guarding the dog leg on the inside and outside, and bunkers guarding kind of triangular shaped greens. You'll see bunkers left and right. Very common. And you'll see a lot of it. There's not a lot of elevation change. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these holes kind of look the same when you're watching on TV until you get to the last 5, which all have water. And the matches that get into this area can really be turned around on these holes because there's, this is your typical match play risk reward style, which should create a really, really compelling finishes to these matches. But typically what you see on this golf course, that's a par 70, about 70, just under 7,300 yards, iron play is going to become really important. I believe that is the key to match play. Put in pressure on your opponents with iron shots that are really like many of them are 125 to 175, kind of in that range. It's a really important area that I think will be rather important. Again, those narrow fairways you can see here on Rick's website. If you're watching on YouTube, accuracy gets a little bump over driving distance. I'll be curious to see how that plays out because I would probably give distance a little more of an edge, but maybe the trees that come into play put a premium on accuracy.
Yeah. When I was going through the course, seems to me, like you mentioned, the front 9, parkland, tree lined, really got to put the ball in the fairway. And you look at the guys who have found success, it's obviously a very different game from when they played the President's Cup in 2007. But Scott Verplank won a Canadian Open here and was 4-0 in that President's Cup. David Toms was 4-0-1. And Mike Weir obviously had a great President's Cup too. Those aren't necessarily the bombers, but like I mentioned, different ball game, analytics, push the envelope as much as possible and go from there. So are you thinking mostly with match play, obviously you got to make putts to win, but it seems to me like this could be a real ball striker's paradise, so to speak.
Yeah, that's the sense that I get. Of course, you're going to have to make putts, but I don't think you can lean on the putter. I think you can really put pressure on your opponents by giving yourself look after look after look for birdie. In the 4-ball play, the team that has 2 looks at birdie they're going to really get themselves on the front foot. And if you look on Rick's website there, all those metrics that are most important are some bucket of proximity. I mean, look, go down this list. We don't see this very often. Every single one of them in here. Approaches from inside 100 yards in the rough. Approaches from outside or inside of 200 yards in the rough. Approaches from 100 to 125, 125 to 150, 150 to 175 in the rough, 225 to 250, 225 to 250 rough. All of them. The first, 10? The first 10 are all iron play buckets of some degree. Now, I wouldn't put all my eggs in one basket and say, hey, you got to 225 to 250 in the rough is the key to this golf course, right? I don't think you have to be that specific, but I do find it very interesting that all of the most highly correlated areas to success are all something to do with iron play. So that would be my lean in this.
And speaking of iron play, I was looking at the cadence of the golf course and kind of diving into why the U.S. team in 07 was so successful in foursomes. So you have 4 par 3s. They're all on odd holes. So the same guy in foursomes is going to be hitting shots into the par 3s. And those same players are also going to be hitting the second shots into both par 5s for foursomes also. Number 12 or number 6 and number 12. So harping on the importance of approach play, it seems like the key holes, so to speak, high leverage holes are going to really come down to the iron play.
So Scotty Scheffler will be will be teeing off on the odd holes. He will. Is that right? He's teeing off. Yeah. All the par 3s are odd holes.
Mm-hmm.
So he's teeing off first on number 1, and he gets a lot of really important, as you said, I like that term, high leverage iron shots in the hands of Scotty Scheffler.
Yes, and we will talk about the best player in the world. He is still the best player in the world, even though we haven't seen him in, about a month now that he's been off our televisions. But first, we're going to take a quick break from one of our partners.
CBS Sports HQ, giving you college football coverage unlike anyone else.
We're talking Big Ten.
Pre- and post-game coverage.
Are you encouraged with the way that this team responded?
Along with breaking news.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
Highlights and expert analysis.
That streak could be in jeopardy here.
Sure. What was your main takeaway from this game? How impressive was his domination?
That really changed the football game.
Let's go ahead and have some more fun.
Another wild ending.
The chaos continues.
Turn to CBS Sports HQ.
And we are back. Greg, let's talk about a couple golfers. To no one's surprise, the top 2 names on the board are Scotty Scheffler at 11,600 and Xander Schauffele at 10,800. Little caveat this week, a little difference compared to the week-to-week PGA Tour. You got the captain spot this week, the Robin Williams, captain my captain spot, which you got to pay up for him, pay a price and a half. You get 1.5 points in return. Let's talk about him. Scotty Scheffler, Xander Schauffele. Can't really poke any holes in either of their games. Should be playing plenty for the U.S. team. Xander has a comfortable partnership. Scotty, you can probably pair him with anyone.
Yeah, so there are some really interesting questions here. The partner, I think, is a huge deal, especially when you're looking at a captaincy role. Because you can, in essence, get Scotty Scheffler and Xander Schauffele without clicking their name, without paying that price. So my first question, Patrick, do you think Scotty Scheffler and Sam Burns will be paired together during, more than once?
They only trotted them out once at the Ryder Cup, the first match out in foursomes, which was a peculiar decision, I thought, with Sam Burns' play. And then they went to Brooks Koepka, and they got trounced. Ludwig and Victor got them. Didn't win a match in Rome. And so I was looking through the Getty images, Greg, looking at some of the pairings that they had at Royal Montreal. Scotty was with, I believe, Finau today, and with Burns also. And maybe Keegan was in that group. So I don't know if Sam Burns is going to play foursomes. I don't think he should play foursomes. So that leaves who do you put Scotty with in that regard, right? Because Scotty Scheffler would be presumably a great foursomes player.
Yes. He has not been a great President's Cup player at all.
No.
I mean, he's 0-3-1 in the President's Cup and didn't play well in 2022. A lot of that was with Sam Burns. He's 2-2-3 in the Ryder Cup. And he had a great first Ryder Cup.
Yes.
At Whistling Straits. So there's been some issues with Scotty in this format. I've been leaning on Scotty all year long. I think he's far and away the best player in this field. So I am still going to play him. I am not going to use that record as a whole in his game. I think his putting is a lot better than it has been. You know what we just said about iron play. And if this golf course sets up for a really strong iron player, yeah, sign me up. Put him with Burns. Put him with Burns again. If he plays with Burns and he has those 6 pivotal iron shots, and 4 of them don't require a tee shot to happen before he hits it.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you want to hit the putt? Well, yeah, it's hard to get past Sam Burns. Maybe you could put Brian Harman in that mix, somebody like that. Maybe Thigala gets into that mix, but I think you're pretty much looking at I think Burns and Scheffler makes a lot of sense. So I don't like playing Scheffler as the captain, but I like him on the team. Oh, you know who I like Xander also being on the team, although I feel so much more confident that you're going to see Xander play with Cantlay that I don't necessarily think you have to click Xander's name. I think you can click Cantlay's name, get a lot of the upside of Xander, and Cantlay could be a really viable captain option.
Yeah, I do have a take on Scotty Scheffler's poor record in these team events. Are you ready for it?
Yes.
All right, so Scotty Scheffler came into the 2021 Ryder Cup, one of the last guys picked for the team captain's pick, played with Bryson DeChambeau, baptized John Rahm on Sunday's singles. They were wearing normal caps that year, right? Just run-of-the-mill, normal golf hats. For some reason, the American side in 2022 got really into rope hats and flat brims and hats that don't really fit heads well. Let's say that. And like you mentioned, 0-3-1 there at Quail Hollow. Sam Burns was dragging him around, trying to get anything and everything out of him. He was shanking iron shots. Scotty Scheffler doesn't do that. 2022, by far the best player in the world after that season. 2023, Greg, rope hats, flat brims in Rome, 0-2-2 as well. He has yet to win a full point in the President's Cup or Ryder Cup while wearing a flat brim or rope hat in competition. What do you think about that?
Well, I always thought that Hatgate had to do with Patrick Cantlay, but perhaps it has nothing to do with Cantlay. Perhaps Cantlay made the right decision. Maybe yes. Scotty will follow suit, go hatless. Although, have you seen the U.S. uniforms for the President's Cup?
The uniforms, outfitted by Zero Restriction, B. Draddy, the whole gang there, phenomenal. The hats, Greg, they leave a lot to be desired.
Are they rope or flat brim?
A lot of rope going on, and then they have an old school normal looking hat that I'm kind of digging.
So he could wear the old school normal looking hat.
Yeah, but the problem is, based on practice rounds, he has not decided to take that route.
All right.
A lot of rope and flat brim in these.
Well, so I know that Scotty's not on social media, but could you DM Teddy Scott, yeah. Say, hey, I have some fascinating research. Could be a good option.
Yes. Trying to help this country, really. Hopefully you guys are in too. Okay.
Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country.
Go Atlas, right? throw everyone for a loop. Okay, I agree with your take on both of them. I think they're obviously great plays to play. I wouldn't captain either of them either, especially paying
Yeah.
up that much. But would definitely still roster. Let's get into the 9K range. 3 guys here. We got Colin Morikawa, 9,800. Our first international player, Hideki Matsuyama at 9,400, and that Patrick Cantlay at 9,200. This range, Greg, has a lot of interest in my mind.
Yes. Really, again, I mean, all 3 would be rosterable. I tend to lean a little more heavily to the U.S. side. I'm looking at Colin Morikawa and what he's done with his iron play, and I think it's absolutely phenomenal. I'm looking at Patrick Cantlay. I think the play has been adequate. Probably not what he's wanted, but it's been close. I don't think there's a glaring issue in his game. And Patrick Cantlay has simply been a star he has been the best player on this team in his Ryder Cup, President's Cup career. He has a 11-5-1 record between President's Cups and Ryder Cups. Never lost in singles in either. He's my front runner for captain. Part of it has to do with his partner. He's got a really strong partnership, and it's a team that is formidable, really hard to beat, and the most feared team. And he's at 9,200, which is significantly cheaper than Xander Schauffele. So Cantlay is my favorite play in this range. I also think Morikawa has a really strong record and has been playing great golf as well.
Yes, I agree. I do like the Cantlay captain's pick, especially. I could see him getting trot out with Wyndham Clark in 4-ball. They played together in Rome. Obviously, we all remember that match. But my eyes are drawn to Colin Morikawa just with how we laid out and discussed this golf course. Mike Weir's come out and said he wants to grow the rough, 4 inches, make it really tough. You need someone who can put the ball in the fairway. That's Colin Morikawa. You need someone who's a great iron player. That's Colin Morikawa. And it just seems like everything's lining up for him. And like you mentioned, he had a great season, but just didn't come away with a win. But every other statistic, pretty much the best of his career, just didn't fall his way. So I think he is firmly the 3rd best player on this team. He's great in foursomes. I assume he's going to get at least 1 call in 4-ball and play at least 4 times. And I think he'd be really tough to beat in all those.
Yeah, I think you're trying to get the top guys 4 matches. So with these 4 players for the U.S. that we've talked about should all play 4 matches. Their partners may get changed around a little bit, or maybe a couple guys, but I don't see any of them going all 5, unless it's really tight and one of them's playing really well. I think you see them all get one rest. So as far as usage is concerned, I don't think you're going to see a big difference between the top 5. The only thing that leans me more towards Cantlay over Morikawa is the assuredness I have of him playing with Xander.
Yeah.
Which is why I don't think you have to roster Xander.
Mm-hmm. What do you think? Do you think Furyk would put Scheffler and Morikawa together in foursomes?
It's a lethal team.
Yeah.
Are you okay with that team on the greens? I would say the answer to that is who cares? Foursomes is a ball striking contest, not a putting contest.
Yeah. What about
my own question?
What about Hideki Matsuyama? Probably a different usage rate there on the international side. Hideki 7, 10, and 5 in his President's Cup career, coming off a great year as well. Any interest there?
No. It has nothing to do with his play. I think what's happened to Hideki Matsuyama in President's Cups is he gets high usage rates, plays against big-time opponents, and, often has a weaker partner. And so he could play great and lose matches and lose holes and not accumulate fantasy points. So I am going to mix in some internationals into my lineups. I just don't think it's going to be Hideki Matsuyama.
Interesting. I tend to agree, Greg. All right, we will get to some of those international plays potentially. 8K, 7K, 6K, 5K. Greg, what if I told you there was a 4K range this week? But first, let us hear a word from one of our partners.
Today, with the support of the NFL, a new playbook is being written. The National Gay Flag Football League provides inclusive play for over 4,000 LGBTQ plus players and allies. Here is a home with no penalty for being you.
And we're back. Let's get to those 8K fellas. We got Sung J M at 8.8, Sammy Burns at 8.4, and Tom Kim at 8 flat. Global superstar who honestly went 2-3 despite all the noise around his Quail Hollow performance in his debut. Took over the competition. Greg, anyone tickle your fancy here?
It's kind of interesting about Tom Kim, right? He was the star of the show, the most memorable player from that 2022 President's Cup, and went 2-3.
A lot of yelling.
A lot of yelling. I think this is where my first international could come into play, depending on lineup construction. That would be Sung J M at 8,800. I really like the way that he's played this season. His iron play has seemed to, ever since, say, the U.S. Open, his iron play has really gotten back into Sung J form. His short game has gotten a lot stronger in that time frame as well. I trust him on the greens. I really am quite fond of his record in the President's Cup. He's 5-3-2. It's a pretty darn good record considering you're on losing teams. Has struggled in foursomes, has never lost a four-ball match or a singles match. So I like how Sung J M has performed in the President's Cup. I like where his game is now. He's a very viable option. Now, I also think Sam Burns is a very viable option. Now, his record, like Scotty Scheffler's, and these kind of go hand in hand, his record's not very good. But look what he's done with his iron play since the Open Championship. 2 or more strokes in his last 5 events with his iron play. 4 out of his last 5, he's done the same thing. Actually, 3 or more strokes on the greens. I think he's cleaned up a little bit of the driving accuracy. But what that combination of iron play and putting has done is it's allowed him to make a pile of birdies. Just a mountain of birdies. That works pretty well in this format. Sam Burns would be my second choice for a captain behind Patrick Cantlay.
Oh, Greg.
They have to turn this around, right? I mean,
yeah.
Look at Sam Burns. He's 0-3-2 in the President's Cup.
He played great at Quail Hollow.
He played
solid, but it was just
point.
Did not. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's going to show up again, and I think the points are going to fall his way. So a big proponent of Sam Burns.
Okay, and what about we haven't even talked about the global superstar, Tom Kim, who we have not seen since Memphis.
Yeah, he's been playing well. A little bit concerned with his putting.
Yep.
Been kind of weak. I think there's probably a lot of buildup, a lot of expectations on Tom Kim coming in because of what he did in the last President's Cup. I'll put it this way. I prefer Sung Jae over Tom Kim. It doesn't necessarily mean I have a problem with Tom Kim. It's been a while since we've seen him, and I'm generally not a proponent of that. I prefer guys who have played.
I agree. And to piggyback off the putting woes, Tom Kim, 24th out of 24 players the last 3 months in strokes gained putting in this field. That is hard to believe, given how hot he can run on the greens, especially when he won those PGA Tour events. Okay, let's dip down into the sevens. We got the Wild Boys, the Hamburglar, Wyndham Clark at 7,600, Sahith Theegala at 7,200. Both those players making their President's Cup debuts. And then the man who is certainly not making his debut, he has actually played in more President's Cup matches than the entire U.S. team combined. Adam Scott, 7,000 flat. Adam Scott's his name's kind of speaking to me, Greg. What about you?
It's a very similar situation to Hideki Matsuyama. He's been leaned on, gone into some really tough matches, played well, come out on top in some, not in others. It seems like the President's Cup is a really hard fought battle for those guys. They just always seem to get the toughest matches and put up a strong fight. It's just hard to win points. So, look, Wyndham Clark has played great as well. Theegala's played great. I think the play in this range is Theegala. I love what he's done in his last 2 events. I love that he played the Parkour Championship and played well. He's gotten really hot on the greens at times. I never thought of him as a player to have success on narrow golf courses, but he has. He was runner-up at the RBC Heritage. Scottish Open, another venue where you got to get it in play. He was tied 4th. He's put together some surprising performances when there's a lot of danger lurking off the tee, which I wouldn't have pinned that on him. Arnold Palmer Invitational, the Players, narrow golf courses. He's got top 10s in all of those events. I'm very curious about Sahith, and I think he could be in for a really strong President's Cup.
Oh, I think I'm kind of out on this range. I do like Adam Scott, like I mentioned, but battling the sniffles last week a little bit, just put a new putter in the bag also. What do you do at the BMW? He play well?
He tied 57th. Lost over 4.5 strokes putting.
Okay, so maybe it's time to put the old putter back in the bag.
Maybe. Because that was working really well before this.
Yeah, why the heck did he change? Golfers,
I don't
man.
know. I don't know.
Figure them out.
He gained like 6 shots putting at the Tour Championship.
Yeah, he was lethal throughout the playoffs with that thing.
Could have been better.
Okay, could have been better. Yeah, exactly. I think him and Lab were in the lab, not to be ironic or whatever. Yeah, they're in the lab together on this putter, and they might need to go back to the lab. Shout out Mike Tomlin. Okay, let's get into the 6K range. We have a couple, if you want to call it, controversial picks in Max Homa at 6,600, Brian Harman at 6,200, and then the only other man on this international team, in addition to Sung J M, who has a winning record in this competition, Si Woo Kim. He's shaking his ass at $6,000. Greg, what do you make of this group? It could be highly volatile. I feel like.
I don't know what to think about Max Homa.
Yeah.
There's a world where he's just a great team competition player, steps up for it. But, he's also come into these events hitting it a whole lot better than he has this year. Mm-hmm. He's really struggled off the tee. And then he misses the cut in Napa. I can't play Max Homa. I'm not taking the, Captain America thing and saying, put him on my team. I'll put Si Woo Kim on my team any day of the week. He's feisty. He can get really hot with the putter. It's a little bit more of a chance. We get down here, we're taking a little more of a chance. I love what Siwoo Kim has done with his iron play and his driving game. I think it's been strong. Siwoo could be one of those sneaky, heavy leans for the international team. And I know he was the leading point getter in the last President's Cup, I believe. I think he has the opportunity to do that again. And I think they're really going to be, even though he was a captain's pick, they're going to be leaning on him pretty heavy.
I believe he compiled 2.5 points, a full point there on Sunday, of course, when he took down Justin Thomas. Final hole birdie. Who could forget that one? Hell of a fist pump. Great fit. One, like the knee drop fist pump, underutilized. I don't think I've seen it since. And I don't know if I saw it before, honestly.
And that was his 4th President's Cup point. That was to get him to 4-3.
Yeah. Okay.
Career record. Pretty good.
Yes. Very good. I do like Siwoo too. Yeah. I do wonder how much how much are you going to play Max Homa in this, given how he's playing? I could see not a ton. If you're Furyk. Down to the 5Ks. Tony Finau, where he be now, $5,800. Corey Connors, the first Canadian, Greg, all the way down at 5,600. Jason Day, 5,400. Seabez at 5,200. And then we get top 10 player in the world, Russell Henley at $5,000 flat. I think there's a couple interesting cats in this range. You know where my interest lies. It is with Russell Henley. He will be 2-0-0 in foursomes. You can bet on that. Give him his singles match while you're at it. That's 3 points guaranteed for $5,000. I think that's a hell of a bargain. But anyone else you like here, Greg?
Maybe you captain Russell Henley.
Oh,
you seriously could. I'm a little concerned. I don't know if he'll get 4 matches. That would be the one issue. Like he's got to win his first match in order to play in 4. He's got to win his first, win his second, play a third before singles. It's a risky, so probably outside of captaincy range. If you wanted to be a big contrarian, you could captain Corey Connors, because Corey Connors will get a lot of usage. He's playing really well. He's been hitting the ball really well. His putter this season in general has improved dramatically. He had a terrible showing in Charlotte. 0-4, did not play well. There's another Canadian who went 0-4 in Charlotte who I thought did play well, who I also would consider rostering. But I have to think this is going to turn around for Corey Connors a little bit. And the President's Cup kind of hinges on it. If we get those, if you're an international fan and the Canadian players play well and get you points, could change the entire feel of the event. So I think there's a lot of pressure riding on Corey Connors. I'm probably not going to captain him, but I think it's a really interesting strategy because you get all the usage, you have the ball striking ability. He's just on the underdog team. And if you think the internationals are going to give him a run, I think Corey's the guy to captain.
I do agree with you that this international team will go as the Canadians go. But of the 3, I kind of like the other 2 more. And we'll get into those. We'll round out this with the 4K range. Mackenzie Hughes, 4,800. Keegan Bradley, 4,600. Minwoo Lee making his debut at 4,400. Taylor Pendrith at 4,200. And Benny On, the last man on the board, at $4,000. Greg, I'll be honest with you. I will be frank. I will be to the point. This price tag on Taylor Pendrith is downright disrespectful. It is downright disrespectful. He is going to play at least 4 times. He is playing great golf at the moment. He is putting it beautifully right now. I do not see how you don't roster Taylor Pendrith this week.
I completely agree. I wrote down one name in the 4K range. It was Taylor Pendrith. He will be in my lineups. He will turn this around. He is the Canadian that played well in Charlotte, even though they lost matches. even though he went 0-4. He played really well. And I think a little experience, a little home crowd will go a long way for him. His iron play has been spectacular. His putting has been spectacular. It's very similar to a Sam Burns kind of stat profile, if not a little better, and way underpriced. That I don't know. I think you could captain either Corey Connors or Taylor Pendrith. If I was going to go that route and captain an international, I think it would be Corey Connors, and I think it would have Taylor Pendrith in that lineup. And then I think I'd go pretty heavy Americans.
Yeah.
Alongside of that.
Do you think Weir trots them back out together?
I do.
Okay.
There's a chance Mackenzie Hughes is in the mix as well. Mackenzie Hughes played really well. Like, he's going to get fired up for this. I was not in agreement that he should be picked, but and I think he's probably heard a lot of that and really wants to prove them wrong, and is certainly capable of proving them wrong. Them being me, and all the other pundits, if you will. He's certainly capable of that. Like I said earlier, it's match play. Anything can happen. I just don't, as a general philosophy, I don't think you lean on the putter in these kind of events. Maybe Mackenzie Hughes could be like an Ian Poulter. Who knows?
Yes. Mackenzie Hughes, over the last 3 months, among those in this field, he is number 1 in strokes gained putting, number 1 in strokes gained around the green. And Greg, you mentioned the Parkour Championship. That was Mackenzie Hughes' best iron performance since last year's Memorial.
Yeah.
So maybe that could spur him on. I want to love Mackenzie Hughes this week. He kind of reminds me of this dog we had in college my senior year. My roommate just spur of the moment picked up a dog. It's not the dog's fault that he's horribly trained, right? He's living in a cramped apartment with four humans. We don't take like any care of him. He still has him to this day. It's a great dog because I've known the dog its entire life. But around other people, Greg, it's horrible. It's jumping on people. It's biting people. There's a video out there, not to incriminate anyone, of the dog going full Ray Lewis at a toddler. Sent it to the hospital. I can send it to you guys later. And that's kind of what I think of Mackenzie Hughes, where I want to love Mackenzie Hughes this week, but I could see him, rubbing other people the wrong way.
Well, I will say this. He lives in Charlotte, plays at Quail Hollow. So that's a home game for him. Played very well at the Wells Fargo. Canadian Open, obviously a big deal. Played very well at the Canadian Open. There's a world that I could see where Mackenzie Hughes steps up when he has to. Look, that's a lot for me to lean on when it comes to putting him in my lineup, but it could be a X factor for the Canadians, the international team in general. Could be a huge X factor for it. So I'm much more apt to lean on Pendrith or Connors in my Canadian selections, which, again, I don't think you have to do that in every build. I could see a build where you have a little Siwoo Kim or little Sung Jae Im in there, and it's pretty top-heavy Americans other than that, maybe with a Taylor Pendrith in there to save you some cash. I could also see you going completely contrarian, going pretty heavy international. And if you do that, you can get some American stars and a Pendrith or a Connors as a captain. I think you can build a pretty good lineup that way.
Yes, I think my Canadian tuxedo is more Pendrith Hughes. I don't know. I think it's just in my mind how bad his putting was at Quail Hollow. When it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. That was so long ago. But man, it was tough to watch Corey Connors there.
Corey? Yeah, but he's putted a lot better than that.
I know he is much better in different surface, all that jazz. All right, you got anything else you want to touch on? Anything we missed from all the way up from Scotty Scheffler down to Benny on?
I know tomorrow we're going to talk a lot more about this, who wins and how tight it's going to be. but I think there's a lot of pressure on those Canadians. But fortunately, the difference is fans will be cheering for them instead of against them. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for revenge this week. You know, Scotty Scheffler and Sam Burns need a little revenge. Even though they won last time, they didn't play very well. Corey Connors and Taylor Pendrith, they need some revenge this time around. Adam Scott looking for that first President's Cup. 11 tries. It's crazy. I have a feeling this one's going to be pretty darn tight.
I think so too. Labeling it Revenge Week, I like it in the sake of college football. This President's Cup labeled Revenge Week. All right, that'll do it for us. Be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, all that jazz, wherever you listen to your audio podcast. And, of course, Josh set us up a great little email. We have been getting some pretty crazy ones. firstcutpodcast@gmail.com. Please CC Greg on all those. Get him up to date on the phishing, the malware, all that jazz. Got to keep you on your toes, Greg. But I think that'll
no clue what you're talking about.
Neither do I. That's the beauty of it. All right, that'll do it for us here at the First Cut Podcast. A special thanks to producer Josh. I always forget to thank him when I do this. Not this time, because it's Revenge Week. That is Greg DuCharme. You can find him at The Real GFD. I am Patrick McDonald. You can find me at PMcDonaldCBS, and we will catch you cats tomorrow.